The Green Fireball Protocol. The first sound on the recovered tape is not a voice. It is a slow mechanical breath, capstan turning, oxide whispering over a head, the soft electrical murmur of equipment built by people who believed the future would be made of switches. Then, a woman's voice enters, dry and close, as if she has leaned toward the microphone only because no one else in the room has earned the right to hear her. Evelyn Pike, Radar Operations Desk, Holloman Auxiliary Room 3. Local time, 2:17. If this recording survives, please tell whoever catalogs it that the coffee was criminal and the kernel was worse. A click. A page turns. Object acquired at bearing 149, elevation 12 degrees. No transponder, no engine sound, no meteor trail. Velocity changes from impossible to insulting. Green luminosity. Perfect sphere. If anyone writes weather balloon on my report again, I will staple the balloon to his forehead. There is a pause, and beneath it another sound, almost hidden by the tape hiss, the same voice, half a second early. Object acquired. The second Evelyn says, faint and ghosted, before the Evelyn at the microphone says it again. The archive technicians who found the recording centuries later marked that moment as damage. Magnetic bleed-through, a duplicated phrase, a defect in preservation. But the tape has been tested against every known failure mode. The ghost voice is not an echo. It carries different room tone, a different electrical hum, a different pulse of fear. In 1949, New Mexico was full of lights people were not supposed to discuss. The newspapers called them green fireballs. Farmers called them devil stars. Pilots called them anything except what they were seeing, because pilots enjoyed continuing to be pilots. Military men called them Soviet devices, atmospheric phenomena, Venus, hoaxes, secret tests, and, when the room was locked, a problem for Washington. Evelyn Pike called them punctual. They appeared after accidents. Not after every test, not after every blast. Only after the wrong kind of damage, the sort that did not leave smoke or heat or bodies, but made clocks hesitate and compasses point toward empty chairs. On the tape, Evelyn reads coordinates. Her pencil taps the desk. Green object has stopped over Sector K-12. No visible target below it. Correction. The target below it is not visible on radar, but the map has changed. Another page. The arroyo is gone. Someone in the room laughs nervously. A male voice, younger, educated, trying to sound bored. Arroyos do not go anywhere, Miss Pike. Neither do physicists, Dr. Rusk, but here you are. The man says something too low to catch. Evelyn's chair creaks. Object brightening. Duration 4 seconds. 5, 6. Ground return restored. The arroyo is back. She stops speaking. The tape runs through 11 seconds of silence. Then Evelyn says, softer. It put the desert back. Project Twinkle did not begin with wonder. It began with paperwork. There were requisition forms for camera mounts, forms for fuel, forms for personnel, forms explaining why the previous forms had been delayed, and one memorable form asking whether a phenomenon seen by dozens of witnesses could be classified if no one in command agreed it existed. Colonel Warren Bell solved that last question by writing classified across the file in red pencil. There, he said, it exists responsibly. Evelyn was the only woman assigned to the radar desk, which meant she was responsible for accuracy, typing, coffee, and absorbing condescension without damaging government property. She had been recruited because she could distinguish a weather return from an aircraft return faster than most men could locate the ashtray. This was considered useful, but not threatening as long as no one said it aloud. The first week she tracked 3 green fireballs. The official explanation changed 3 times. Meteor, experimental aircraft, sunlight on ice crystals. At 2 in the morning? Evelyn asked. The lieutenant delivering the explanation looked injured. Clouds can be complicated. So can lying. You are doing both poorly. That earned her a note in her personnel file and a private smile from Daniel Rusk, the civilian physicist assigned to Project Twinkle by people who distrusted physicists but needed one close enough to blame. Daniel wore the same brown jacket every day, as if consistency could protect him from military logic. He had narrow hands, ink on his cuff, and the habit of beginning every sentence with "strictly speaking," which Evelyn considered a warning label. Strictly speaking, he told her after the lieutenant left. Your object reports are not impossible. That is generous. They are merely incompatible with every mechanism I understand. Less generous. Daniel smiled. Better science. For 2 weeks, they built a private map. Evelyn logged every sighting. Daniel compared them with test schedules, accident rumors, medical transfers, missing trucks, melted phone lines, and one classified incident involving a mule that had allegedly been in 2 counties at the same time. The pattern arrived slowly, the way a bruise arrives after impact, a plutonium handling error near Los Alamos, green fireball within 12 hours, a misfired instrument package at White Sands, green fireball within 3, a convoy accident listed as mechanical failure, though the road beneath the wreck had become smooth black glass for 80 yards. Green fireball within minutes. Evelyn pinned the map to the back of a storage cabinet where no officer would look because the cabinet was labeled mimeograph supplies. You realize, Daniel said, that if this is real, it is not a Soviet weapon. Why? Because it repairs things. Evelyn looked through the narrow window at the base lights burning in the desert. Maybe they have better manners. Daniel almost laughed, then did not. By then, he had started forgetting whether his mother was alive. The first time Daniel saw the world corrected, he dropped his notebook and apologized to it. They were 6 miles beyond the southern fence, standing beside a radio tower that had burned in a test accident 3 days earlier. The official report said wind damage. The tower said otherwise. Its steel legs had bubbled outward like wax. The sand below it had fused into a dark, rippled sheet. A jackrabbit lay nearby without injury, dead in the posture of running. Evelyn crouched beside the glassed earth. This is what the Sector K-12 Arroyo looked like before the fireball. Daniel took a sample with tweezers. Heat. Obviously. Not obviously. The sand shows heat, but the brush does not. The tower melted, but the paint on that sign did not blister. The sign read, Restricted Era. Use of deadly force authorized. Evelyn brushed dust from her skirt. The sign has institutional protection. Daniel wrote that down, then crossed it out when she looked at him. At 14:09, the air changed, not wind. Wind had direction. This was the sudden pressure of a room filling around them, though they stood under a hard blue sky. Evelyn felt it in her teeth. Daniel reached for his Geiger counter. The needle did not climb. It trembled as if afraid to choose a number. A green sphere appeared above the tower. It did not descend. It did not arrive from a horizon. It was simply not there. Then it was there, glowing with a color too clean for flame. It made the desert shadows sharpen. Daniel whispered, No thermal bloom. Is that your official reaction? My unofficial reaction is unprintable. The sphere pulsed once. The melted tower straightened. Not slowly. Not with the reverse motion of film. The damage became undecided, then settled on never having happened. Steel unwarped. Bolts rethreaded. The fused sand broke into ordinary grains and rolled softly under Evelyn's shoes. The dead jackrabbit vanished, then reappeared alive 20 feet away, springing into the brush with what Evelyn felt was justified resentment. Daniel's notebook changed in his hands. The page where he had written melted steel now read intact structure. The ink dried into new words while his pencil still hovered. He made a sound Evelyn would not have expected from a grown man with 3 degrees. "Do not faint," she said. "I am not fainting." "You apologize to your notebook. It has been through something." The sphere dimmed. For one instant, a shape appeared inside it. Not a pilot, not a face, not a machine, but a lattice of dark lines, like the outline of a cathedral drawn by insects. Then the fireball blinked out. Daniel stared at the repaired tower. "This is not camouflage," he said. "It is correction." Evelyn looked at her own report forms in their folder. The top page had changed too. Her note about the burned tower now read, "Inspection postponed due to weather." There had been no weather. There had only been the future becoming more polite. Colonel Warren Bell believed in 3 things: chain of command, Soviet malice, and the healing power of a locked filing cabinet. When Evelyn and Daniel placed their evidence on his desk, he listened with the patient expression of a man watching civilians assemble a bomb out of grammar. "Let me understand," Bell said. "You are telling me the green objects are repairing damage caused by atomic tests." "Some atomic tests," Daniel said. "Some accidents," Evelyn said. Bell tapped ash into a tray shaped like Texas. "And you believe this because a rabbit returned from the dead." "I believe it because 27 radar logs correlate with classified incidents I am not supposed to know about. Miss Pike, there are many things you are not supposed to know about." "Yes, sir. The Army has made ignorance very available." Daniel closed his eyes. Bell did not smile. He opened a drawer, removed Evelyn's typed report, and placed a blank form beside it. "You will write that the object observed at Sector K-12 was a meteorological reflection." "A reflection of what?" "Weather." "What weather?" "Classified weather." That was the moment. Daniel laughed. It was small and fatal. Bell's eyes moved to him. "Dr. Rusk, you are here because certain committees enjoy civilian signatures on military conclusions. Do not become decorative." Daniel's face reddened. "Colonel, with respect, these phenomena are not acting like aircraft, weapons, meteors, plasma, ball lightning, or any atmospheric mechanism in the literature." "Then the literature is behind Moscow." Evelyn leaned forward. "If it were Soviet, why repair our accidents?" Bell's jaw tightened. "To observe response times, to create confusion, to make intelligent young women ask questions in rooms where questions are not requested." He stood, signaling the meeting's death. "You will both return to your duties. You will not discuss rabbits, alternate reports, or self-editing notebooks. Miss Pike, if your logs continue to attract poetry, I will replace you with a man whose imagination has been properly discouraged." That night, Evelyn obeyed the order. She wrote meteorological reflection. She locked the form in the cabinet. At 0312, she returned because she had forgotten her gloves. The auxiliary room was dark, except for the green glow beneath the cabinet drawer. Inside, the report had corrected itself. The phrase meteorological reflection had been erased and replaced with local repair events, Human observer compromised. Duplicate index. Pike. Evelyn M. Evelyn copied the sentence onto her palm before the paper went blank. By morning, Colonel Bell remembered ordering no such report, but his ashtray was no longer shaped like Texas. It was shaped like a state Evelyn did not recognize. Daniel Rusk arrived at Evelyn's desk 2 days later carrying a photograph of his mother. "Tell me if she looks dead," he said. Evelyn set down her coffee. "That is a terrible greeting. Please." The photograph showed a woman in a garden, one hand lifted against the sun. There was nothing strange about it except Daniel's expression as he watched Evelyn study it. "She looks alive," Evelyn said. "She died in 1936. I am sorry. No, she died in 1944. No, she is currently living in Ohio and writes me every Sunday." "I have 3 memories, Evelyn. They are not dreams. They have tax records." He sat before his knees gave up on the project of standing. The base had been wrong all morning. A map in the operations room showed Alaska as a narrow peninsula shaped like a hook. One sergeant insisted Truman had lost the election. Another referred to a bombing campaign in a war Evelyn had never heard of, then vomited when shown a newspaper. Evelyn had her own discrepancies. Her locker contained a wedding ring. No inscription, no memory of purchase. It fit perfectly. She wore it on a chain under her uniform blouse because throwing it away felt like murdering a question. Daniel pressed his palms against his eyes. "In one memory, you died in 1947. Ugh, that sounds inconvenient. You were in a lab accident at Los Alamos." "I have never worked at Los Alamos. In that memory you did. In another, you gave testimony to a Senate committee and disappeared afterward. In this one, you insult colonels and drink burnt coffee. I prefer this one. So do I." The admission landed between them with more weight than either expected. Outside, sirens began. They ran to the radar room. Evelyn's scope showed 6 green objects, each hovering above a different classified site, not moving. Waiting, Bell stormed in with 2 armed men and a face so controlled it looked borrowed. "All civilian materials are now under military custody." Daniel stood. "Colonel, the fracture is spreading. The Soviets are spreading. The Soviets did not rewrite your ashtray." Bell glanced at Evelyn. He remembered. Not fully, not safely, but enough that his hand moved toward his desk drawer where the Texas ashtray should have been. Enough that fear broke through doctrine. "Miss Pike," he said. "Quieter." "What did the report call you?" Evelyn touched the ink fading from her palm. "Compromised." Daniel swallowed. It also said duplicate. The radar screen brightened. 7 objects now, then 8. Then the room lights flickered, and for 1 second every voice in the building spoke in 2 versions at once. The message did not arrive as language. It arrived as maintenance. Every radar scope on base drew the same image. A circular pattern of nested green lines, too precise for interference, too patient for attack. Daniel photographed it. The photograph developed before he placed it in chemicals. Evelyn watched the paper darken in his hands, the image appearing with the caption in block letters. "Local civilization has entered unsafe recursion." Bell crossed himself, then pretended he had scratched his collar. "Can it hear us?" he asked. The caption changed. "Local vocalization is not reported." Evelyn leaned over the photograph. "Then what is required?" The answer printed itself beneath the first line. "Primus breach caused by high-energy spacetime contamination. Repair incomplete. Human observer Pike, Evelyn Mem, persists from aborted correction. Cycle. Remove duplicate anchor to stabilize local history. Daniel's voice went thin. No, Bell said. What does remove mean? The image changed again. All records. All memory. All causal dependence. Evelyn read it twice. Her mind did the courteous thing and refused to understand, then the useful thing and understood too much. You want to erase me. The green lines pulsed, not one. The word did not appear, but Evelyn felt its absence. Want belonged to animals, children, officers, nations. This thing did not want, it executed. Daniel slammed the photograph onto the desk. There must be another repair path. The caption answered. Alternate path. Allow planetary history bifurcation. Bell looked at Daniel. Translation. 2 Earths, Daniel said. Not side by side. On top of each other. Mutually exclusive physical histories trying to occupy the same reality. Consequences? Daniel laughed once without humor. Colonel, imagine every bridge deciding it was built in 2 different places. Imagine every person with contradictory parents. Imagine the atmosphere inheriting 2 chemical records. Bell's face hardened because terror had finally found a uniform it liked. Can we destroy the objects? The photograph changed before Daniel answered. Local weaponry irrelevant. Evelyn almost smiled. It knows you. Bell ignored her. The base shook. Not from an explosion. From disagreement. For several seconds, the north wall of the radar room was brick. Then plaster. Then corrugated metal. A calendar on the wall showed June, then March, then a month named Primus. A corporal screamed because his left hand wore a wedding band, and his right did not have fingers. The green pattern spread across every surface that could reflect light. Glass, instruments. Daniel's eyes. Evelyn saw herself in the black radar screen, not her reflection. Another Evelyn, older, wearing a lab coat burned at the sleeve, mouthing one sentence again and again. You are the part it missed. By dusk, the base was no longer a place. It was an argument with fences. Trucks changed markings while moving. One barracks became a hospital, then a schoolhouse, then barracks again, each version leaving behind smells that had no right to share air. Antiseptic, chalk dust, boot polish. Men forgot orders between one step and the next. A flag outside headquarters gained stars, lost them. Rearranged them into a pattern Evelyn could not count without nausea. The green fireballs hung above the desert in a ring. They were not in the sky anymore. Evelyn understood that now they were seams, reality glowing where it had been cut and held together by something old, automatic, and tired. Bell established a command post in the motor pool because the operations building had become unreliable and, at one point, French. We are evacuating non-essential personnel, he said. No one asked who qualified. The base had lost faith in categories. Daniel pulled Evelyn aside beside a fuel truck that existed in 2 paint schemes. I found the origin point. Of the fracture? Of you. She waited. He showed her a folder recovered from a locked Los Alamos archive that, according to Bell, had not been delivered and had always been on his desk. Inside was a personnel record for Evelyn Margaret Pike, Junior Instrumentation Specialist, deceased August 1947. The photograph was her face, but not her expression. That Evelyn looked less skeptical, more hopeful, more easily killed. The first repair cycle tried to correct the accident. Daniel said, "It restored the damaged region, but it preserved a copy of you in the wrong branch. You did not survive, exactly. You continued." Evelyn read the death certificate. Cause of death, laboratory containment failure. Then the words blurred and became cause of persistence, unresolved observer anchor. She handed the paper back. "I have always disliked paperwork. This feels mutual." Daniel did not smile. "If the network removes you, I do not know what remains." A world without you. That was implied by remove. Evelyn! The way he said her name made the joke fail before it reached her mouth. For a moment, they stood in the motor pool while two histories crossed through each other. In one, Daniel had gray at his temples. In another, he was younger and did not know her. In this one, his hand found hers. "There has to be a way to keep the record," he said. Evelyn thought of the tape machine in Auxiliary Room 3. Old equipment. Analog, stubborn, too stupid to update itself gracefully. "Maybe not a record," she said. "Maybe a scar. The green ring above the desert pulsed. Every reflective surface on base showed the same message. Correction window closing." Evelyn returned to Auxiliary Room 3 with Daniel, Bell, and a reel of blank tape that had been blank in at least 4 histories. The room flickered around them. In one version, it had already been abandoned. In another, it was full of nurses. In another, it was underwater, and small silver fish moved through the air before vanishing. Bell stood by the door with his pistol drawn, though everyone understood the pistol was symbolic at best. "Miss Pike," he said, "if this works, what do I report? You will not remember asking." "Humor me." She threaded the tape through the machine. "Report that the sky behaved itself." Bell looked older than he had that morning. "I owe you an apology. You owe me several for not listening." Evelyn tested the microphone. "That one will do." Daniel adjusted the gain with hands that shook. "What are you going to say? Enough. For whom?" She looked at the green glow crawling along the window glass. "For anyone who finds the hole. The repair network did not negotiate, but it responded to structure." Evelyn had learned that from radar returns, from corrected forms, from the way every impossible event arrived with procedural neatness. So she made herself into a procedure. She spoke her name, date, location, observed phenomena. She described the fireballs, the accidents, the repairs, the ashtray, the rabbit, the wrong maps. Daniel's 3 mothers, Bell's classified weather, the lab accident that had killed another Evelyn and spared this one by mistake. As she spoke, the room simplified. The underwater version vanished. The hospital version vanished. The walls settled into plaster. The calendar chose June. Daniel whispered, "It is using the recording as a boundary." Evelyn kept speaking. "The network identifies me as duplicate anchor. I identify myself as witness. These terms may be equivalent depending on who wins." Bell laughed once, unexpectedly. Then his face emptied. He looked at Daniel's hand on the tape machine, then at Evelyn. Who authorized this recording? The first memory gone. Daniel saw it too. Evelyn, she did not stop. Colonel Warren Bell, commanding officer, became aware of the repair process at approximately 1700 hours and attempted in his limited but sincere fashion not to make the end of the world worse. Bell blinked. Miss Pike, what is the meaning of this? Second memory gone. The green light brightened until the room had no shadows. Daniel grabbed her arm. I can remember for both of us. No, she said. You cannot. That is the point. Then let me stay with you until the end. She wanted to say yes. That was the selfish truth, the human truth, the one no archive would preserve cleanly. Instead, she touched his cheek because some gestures are older than language and less likely to be corrected. You have to live in the version that costs something. The tape reels turned. The repair network accepted the boundary. Evelyn Pike began to disappear from the room. Not fade. That would have been theatrical. She became administratively unlikely. Bell looked away and forgot why he had ever looked toward her. Daniel's hand closed around empty air and then tightened, stubbornly, around absence. Evelyn's voice remained on the tape. If this works, no one will remember me. If it fails, no one will be left to complain. I prefer the first option. It has better odds and fewer committees. The green light flashed white. For 1 second, two Earths stood inside each other. Then one let go. The official Project Twinkle report concluded that the green fireballs were probably natural phenomena, possibly meteoric, possibly atmospheric, possibly misidentified conventional aircraft, and certainly not a matter requiring public concern. Colonel Warren Bell signed the report. He paused over the signature line because he had the distinct sensation that someone was standing behind his left shoulder making a rude comment about classified weather. No one was there. Dr. Daniel Rusk resigned from government consulting 6 months later. His letter cited health, conscience, and an inability to continue working in institutions where filing cabinets seemed more valued than evidence. He never married. Every Sunday, for reasons he could not explain, he bought 2 cups of coffee and poured one into the desert outside his rented house. He lived a long life. In his final years, he donated his papers to a university archive. The collection included radar calculations, annotated maps, and one empty folder labeled Pike. No one knew what the label meant. The tape machine from Auxiliary Room 3 disappeared from inventory in 1950, reappeared in a private estate sale in 1987, vanished again during a warehouse fire in 2031, and was finally recovered inside a sealed ceramic vault beneath a collapsed lunar listening station, many centuries later. The vault had no human maker's mark. The tape should not have survived. Magnetic media do not persist kindly across centuries. Heat, moisture, radiation, neglect, all of them are patient editors. Yet the reel played, not perfectly. The hiss was heavy. Some words had thinned ghosts. But Evelyn Pike's voice remained practical and amused, and afraid in carefully rationed amounts. At the end of the recording, after the white flash, there are 23 seconds of silence. Then, Evelyn speaks once more. No one has explained how. Postscript, she says. If you are hearing this, either the repair failed in a very interesting way, or history is less waterproof than advertised. The tape clicks, her chair creaks. Tell Daniel he was right about one thing. The notebook deserved an apology. A breath, a smaller voice now. Not weaker, closer. And if no one remembers me, do not waste time being sentimental. Look for the places where the world is too smooth. Look for reports that explain too much. Look for men who call a miracle weather because the alternative requires courage. The final seconds carry a low tone. Analysis shows it is not part of the tape machine. It is the same frequency hidden inside the 1949 radar returns, scaled down into audible sound, green light translated into grief. Evelyn's last words are almost lost beneath it. If the sky ever starts repairing itself again, be polite. It may be saving you. It may be deleting the wrong person. Ideally, not both before breakfast. The tape ends. In the restored archive file, there is a standard field for provenance. Who recorded the material, who preserved it, who authorized its transfer, which chain of custody carried it forward. For this object, the field cannot be completed. Every system that attempts to assign Evelyn Pike a stable historical identity returns the same error. Source absent. Effect persists. Which is why the recording was kept. Not because it proves the green fireballs were alien. Not because it resolves Project Twinkle. Not because it explains why the early atomic age brushed against a maintenance system older than human language. It was kept because a universe can be repaired so thoroughly that the person who saved it is removed from every map, every file, every memory, and still something in the dark will keep the shape of her voice. Some absences are not empty. Some are load-bearing.